guitar people, welcome to Have Guitar Will Travel, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine, with your host, me, James Patrick Regan, otherwise known as Jimmy from the Deadlies, and today I'm speaking with guitarist Chris Voss from The Record Company, who I first interviewed in episode 6. In our conversation, Chris discusses his guitar and lap steel collection at home, and he talks about his local guitar shop, Old Style Guitars in LA. Chris describes the guitars and lap steels that he uses live, and he tells us about the rest of his live rig, and his trick to keeping his guitar volume up and his stage volume manageable. He also explains his backline situation with guitars and amplifiers. Chris talks about the economics and the realities of touring and not using a bus, and Chris tells us about growing up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin and what drew him to guitar and his musical experiences in Wisconsin, eventually teaching 60 students and playing locally in different original bands. Chris talks about his friendship with fellow Wisconsin native Greg Koch, and he talks about his friendship with Marcus King, who originally opened up for the record company, and he talks about a phone conversation with Les Paul. Chris describes the culture shock when he moved to LA and how he found fast friends with the other two guys in the record company. And Chris describes continuing to learn on the guitar and his love of music education and playing in songwriting rounds to work on his craft. To find out more about Chris, you can go to his band's website, therecordcompany.net. That's TheRecordCompany.net. Please subscribe, like, comment, share, and most of all, review this podcast. I'd really appreciate it. And please support Vintage Guitar Magazine and all the wonderful things they do for us guitar players, because they do so many wonderful things for us guitar players. Oh, hey, and if you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/Have Guitar Will Travel Podcast. I really appreciate that, too. Here's my friend Chris. Hey there, Chris. How are you?
How you doing, James?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too. How is your morning?
So far, so good. How about yourself?
Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all.
Are you there in L.A.? What part of L.A. are you at?
I'm in Burbank, man. Just moved. I like your room, man. You got a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah, it's a lot of crap.
Is that I'm trying to see, what's that album you got up in the corner there?
Let me see.
Dwight Yoakam? No.
Oh, yeah, Dwight's over there on that direction.
Yeah, okay.
And but the rest of it is just photos, and then the king, of course, Elvis there.
Oh, you gotta have Elvis.
Yeah. I interviewed you briefly once before when you guys played Bottle Rock. You remember?
I remember you. Yes, absolutely.
That was the pain in the ass.
No, I love it. I love it.
We were supposed to do some special. It was supposed to be an interview, a remote interview. Like I was supposed to be in the media area, and you were in a tent, the specially designed tent. And we were supposed to do it through some sort of special, I can't remember what company it was, but basically a Zoom kind of thing, but it wasn't Zoom. And it all fell apart. And then there was a big fan in the room that was blowing on the recorder, and it was
oh
fantastic. No. It was great.
Yeah. People get excited. What can you do? It's all part of rock and roll.
Oh, yeah. What kind of guitars? So behind you, speaking of rooms, behind you, you have I see two guitars and a lap steel.
Yeah, I have right here. I have it's like a 1950
Fender,
52 or 3 Fender Champ.
Yep. Champion.
Yep, and I have a couple of different little deers here. This is like a little Tiesco.
Yeah.
That I got years ago.
It looks
had a Bixby
brand new.
Yeah, I found it on Craigslist out here way back when.
Uh-huh.
And then you can't see it; it's off camera. But there's a 1949 L1 over there, and then
oh wow.
And then here we got this is I really love. This was kind of my pride and joy.
Sure.
I bought it at Old Style Guitar Shop here in Los Angeles.
Is it
It's a Silvertone tuxedo.
Okay, all right.
And a guy had himself he was a belt maker.
Okay.
So he put all that stuff all over it. So people sometimes think it's a Gretsch. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. And those are guitars that are used in live?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All the time.
What percentage of your show? I'm sure it changes up, but how many songs are you doing with lap steel in the show?
I do usually two or three. I have a Duesenberg, which I wish was here so I could show it to you, but it's in cartage coming back from the road right now.
Okay.
So, but I use a Duesenberg Fairy Tale lap steel.
Okay.
And it's usually in open D or open E, like the old Dwayne tuning.
Yeah,
you know. And I have a couple of Fender Champs from the '60s that I like that have the original pickups in them.
Sure.
But I really like the Duesenberg. I have to run it's a little darker, so I run an EQ on it, like an MXR 8-band EQ on it.
Yeah, yeah, right on. And so what is your live rig? Just, I mean, since we already started, you have the lap steel and the MXR. What are you playing? What kind of amps are you playing through?
So I've got a rig that I've kind of evolved over years. It's just like a couple years back when we were first starting, was nice enough to. Warren Haynes was nice enough with Government Mule to take us out. Sorry, this little guy will be co-starring.
Right on.
Basically, I asked his guitar tech, what's the secret, right, of Warren's sound?
Yeah.
And he said volume. So I'm like, okay, shoot, okay. So I went out and I got myself a deluxe. Just like I used to use I have a really beautiful. A couple of Blackface amps, and I was into all of that for a while. And then I realized, like, as I started traveling, like, that wasn't really ideal. I didn't have what it took to, you're really going to be here, huh, Muffy? This is Muffy. She's named after my grandma.
Yeah, it's a beautiful cat.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she's not part of the rig. But so I went out and I decided, okay, I want to construct something that works every night. I want to have something that, like, gets the job done every night, no matter where I am.
Sure.
So I have a Princeton facing forward. I have a splitter with a shotgun ABY switch because it's got a 180 on it, so you can get the it in phase, and which is really critical.
Sure.
So just for guitar players, if you've never phased two amps, it's pretty easy. It's a lot easier than turning off the auto zoom on Zoom here. But set the two amps in front of you and put a little space between them, stand a little ways back, and you play like a G chord or something. And if it sounds like the sound is hitting you directly, you're in phase. If it sounds like it's lost some bass response and it's kind of hitting you like this, you're out of phase. Yeah. And so that I phase them and I turn the deluxe backwards and I gun it to about 8. And turn the bass down just a little, treble up. I have an attenuator I now put on it that knocks it down by just a little bit. I have a baffle, put a baffle around the back. Yeah. And the amp is facing the wall. And I throw, if I'm in a smaller room, I throw actually a moving blanket over it. And that kind of creates this little cage of chaos. And then the Princeton facing forward is a little more... kind of just a traditional, cleaner sounding amp. So the one in the back's really getting wild. Yeah. And, I'm running that with all my guitars are pretty much humbucking guitars, the Fairy Tale lap steel. I have a black Tele thin line that a friend of mine here, Old Style Guitars in LA built, and Ruben over there. And that's kind of the amp situation. As far as the pedals, I have an MXR, a scoop going. I just scoop a little mid out. Yeah. And then when I use the Duesenberg or I have a Mule resonator, Dobro, I scoop a little bit of 200 out. Yeah. Which takes some of the murk away. The big thing for me is, like, if I'm using like a 335 or something, is to make sure, if you don't have really beautifully balanced pickups, is to take a second and make sure that the darkest tone you have, like I run the neck pickup pretty much all the way to, the tone knob all the way up. And then I adjust the bright pickup to that. So I make the guitar sound the way I want. And then I get the brightness and darkness from there. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
couple of, and then there's nothing really that fancy. I have a POG just in case I want to get wacky. I have 2 tube screamers set pretty low.
Okay.
As far as like driving, because the amp's already doing the job. It's just like basically a boost. But the real secret for me are 2 little pieces of gear that one I discovered a while back and one I just recently purchased. I run into the normal channel on the Deluxe. I don't use the reverb. Flying, I got sick of inconsistent reverb, and I don't really like digital pedals.
Yeah.
My ideal reverb is those old Fender tube tanks.
Sure.
They're not ideal at all. I bought a Surfy Bear. You ever heard of that?
Yes, of course.
It's astounding, guys.
Yeah.
$450 reverb, but it's so versatile and beautiful.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So I run that, and then my real secret, if I have a secret, is I have an EP1 little booster.
Yeah.
But instead of running it as a booster, I turn it on and run it straight to noon, and it just gives a color, a bass color. It's incredible. There's a reason why everybody was using those Echoplexes to color their tone all the day, but sure. And that's the EP1 is basically just that little gain knob is from the Echoplex, and man, it's such a great little boost pedal. That's it.
Yeah, is the EP1 MXR product also, or no?
I think they're their own thing.
Okay.
It's been a minute since I've bought that. I think it's exotic.
Okay.
But I could be wrong on that. Yeah,
probably not. I know that that MXR has, or Dunlop has, the gain off the Echoplex in a box, and you just turn the knob and your gain. Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, man, I enjoy it like big time. That thing is just a great little thing. It's so simple. I love pedals that have 1 or 2 knobs and do like great work. I really love Strymon pedals. I use them actually on my harmonica, which isn't really a guitar thing, so I'll keep it over here. But I use a Strymon Iridium.
Okay.
And I run it into a Strymon compressor. But I set that very simply. When you're stepping on pedals all night long, and I never have step on those. When you're stepping on pedals, if a knob gets turned by your foot or a cable, it's nice to know, hey, I've only got a couple options here. I can get back to business real easily.
Sure.
So I prefer simple.
Yeah, all the time. And for your harmonica, are you using the same amp situation, or you have a special amp for the harmonica?
No, I use the Strymon. I run Strymon Iridium, which is an amp simulator, and I run that direct into a direct box. But I used to run it through a Deluxe. It's a wild sound because I'm not just playing harmonica. We're a 3-piece, so I'm singing through the thing too.
Yeah.
So you have to have a little containment, and you have to strike a balance between the 2 tones. I found that to just cut down on the noise on stage, the potential for just screaming feedback, because they'll feedback. All of us Hendrix fans and whatnot. Yeah. A guitar, it's great, but with a harmonica mic, it's not so great,
And your amp rig with everything, the attenuator and the moving blanket and everything, is it how's the volume on stage?
Well, see, that's where the volume is great, because I took a couple of steps. You're really going to co-star, aren't you, Muffy? Well, you're probably more interesting than I am anyway. No. The volume on stage is not a problem. Okay. It's because I don't like, oddly enough, I'm not a big fan of like having a sound block that the crowd can see. I just kind of want them not to be thinking about that. I want them to see an amp. Yeah. And so they see my Princeton, but they don't see my Deluxe.
Sure.
And the Deluxe has I throw a moving blanket over it. Yeah. That takes all the rafter, and like if there's a wall, you get that the bounce back of the sound. It takes all of that out of it. Yeah. And so I'll even throw 2 on there. The drawback is your amp will get hot, so maybe put a little fan in there where, on the backside. Yeah. But the good side is you really contain that monster and you're not ripping anybody's head off in the front if you're in like say a 500 cap or a 700 cap room and they're right there. You know, I always try to go down and remember when I'm in a venue where there's people that are going to be standing with their head right to my amp. I go down there and sometimes I'll check it out, especially when I'm starting a tour, and be like, what are they receiving? You know, and that's kind of where the Princeton forward started. And you can push a Princeton louder with a little breakup without hurting anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And are these amps, are they vintage amps or are they newer?
No, that was kind of the point of that is I had to find how to use things that you could get through backline that were available anywhere and make them sound good. So I decided, you know, I'm just going to use the reissue Fender products because they're everywhere. You know, I can get a Deluxe pretty much anywhere. I can get a Princeton pretty much anywhere. And if not, I can run 2 Deluxes, no big deal. Or whatever they got. If, you know, AC-15 or, you know, I'll use those facing forward. But they're blank. It's a blank canvas. It's a consistent canvas. And though you may trade away a little bit in personality of the amp, which is very important, not denying that, but you get consistency. So everything that I'm throwing at it, the colors appear on the background similarly each night, which saves me a lot of frustration of each night, knowing that there's some consistency. I like that. You know, we're a 3-piece, so the less I have, you know, and I'm playing a lot of tunings, a lot of different guitars coming at me, harmonicas, you know, lap steels, and it's important to have, you know, some consistency.
So speaking of backline, are most of your dates, if you're not playing in the LA area, are they fly dates? Are you guys flying out to the shows, or are you driving out in a van?
We fly out. We will rent like from Band to Go, you know, like a Sprinter. We were doing the bus thing for a good while, but ever since the pandemic and way things have, really jumped in price, it's just like,
it's crazy.
You know, and honestly, like, I don't mean to rain on any parades, and I'm not complaining. I dreamt my whole life of being on a bus, and I got onto it in my 30s, and I was like, wow, I did it. And there is something to be said about sleeping in a hotel, you know, like you take the drives on, you see the country, and in the there's, you know, the bus, I would always get like a little bit sick because of the air and the air conditioning and the, you know, the filters not getting cleaned. So I really like a Sprinter. Maybe it's just my early, you know, driving in indie bands around the country, you know, for so many years. I don't mind it. So we do a Sprinter in a hotel, and that works.
Probably about half the price of renting a bus.
It is, man. And like the more money you save, the more guitars you get to spend money on.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and you make it work for you, just like it's working for everybody else.
Exactly.
And so, what are you bringing like for your guitars? How are you working that out when you're flying?
Well, if we've got a string of dates, we'll do cartage, you know, where we put it all in a pile and it goes, and then it meets us where we're going to be.
Right on.
Or unfortunately, sometimes you have to do backline guitars, which destroys. That's another element of when I say consistency. You know, all of us know. Like I play 335s and Tele thin lines, and so I bring my thin line and my Duesenberg because those I can't get those anywhere, you know, like I want, and those are kind of uniquely sounding. And then the 335s, you know, my main 335 is a 1997, and you know, the late 90s Gibsons can be really good if you find a good one.
Absolutely.
And I this one I've bought in other ones, I've had other ones, and this one just keeps winning. So I know that I'm going to have. When I get a 335 or a Les Paul, which is what I will backline, I know kind of what I'm going to get there. So we'll backline those if I have to fly with gear. And then the acoustic, I use a Martin D28 that Martin was kind enough to give to me, which I treasure.
Yeah, of course.
I want to use one of those. Have you heard of those This is when you know you've got the disease, right? When you start thinking about stuff like this. Have you seen that little advertisement for the little tone thing you set on your guitar that like ages the tone of the guitar? It just sends a signal through it and it just sits there and buzzes. And
I've heard of things like that. I've heard of people putting their acoustics in front of a stereo and turning the stereo up really loud for a long period of time.
I
haven't heard of that specific.
I looked at this thing the first time and I'm like, oh, give me a break. And now I'm like, that might work. How much is that? But it's a great guitar. And then I'll use whatever, any large, like Dreadnought guitar for sure.
Have you ever come across a backline guitar that you go, hey, I think I'd like to keep this?
All the time. All the time.
Right on.
All the time. I've actually offered, and usually I get turned down, but it's like, every once in a while you hit a real magic one. There's one that's stuck in my mind from years ago that it will never really leave my brain, It was a red 335 with a Bixby on it, and it was like a custom shop deal. And I mean, it was so beautiful. Yeah. And I said to the guy, I'm like, hey, how much you want for it? And he was like, nah, man, not for sale.
That's a bummer. Growing up, did you grow up in the LA area?
No, I grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, man.
Oh, wow.
I grew up on a little Wisconsin farm. That's why I wear the tractor hats.
Okay.
Because my dad's a farmer. Both my brothers are farmers.
Right on.
I was a farmer.
Yeah.
I did, in fact, work on a farm and milk cows and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So,
right on.
Yeah. And I moved here 17 years ago.
Okay. And you must have been playing guitar when you were back in Wisconsin.
Yeah, man. I started guitar for my 8th grade graduation. Like I grew up kind of in a bit of a time warp in the fact that that we didn't have cable till I was like in 6th grade.
Okay.
We didn't have like internet for sure. Uh-huh. You know what I mean? So it was like I didn't see all that till I moved to Milwaukee when I was 18 to go to school out there. And I started playing in 8th grade. There was a kid that came to was at a little Catholic grade school called St. Alphonsus in New Munster, Wisconsin. Uh-huh. And there was a kid out there who, by the way, my neighbor's remodeling. Hope you all are enjoying the just pretend it's part of the tinnitus from your loud amp. What was I saying? Oh yeah, 8th grade. A kid came to school. He was got kicked out of the public school and had to go to the little school. And we had 8 kids in my class, and he showed up with a Metallica Metal Up Your Ass shirt.
Oh man!
And scared the crap out of all the parents and the teachers and everybody. And I was just like, I want to be like that dude.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And so I went to his house one night. He had a Strat. And I had no idea, and I remember holding it, and it was like, it was like the Monty Python, Excalibur.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my God, that was it. The first moment I hit a string with an electric guitar string, that was my destiny as far as I was concerned. It made no sense to anybody.
Yeah.
I remember I came home, I was like in 7th grade. I said to my mom, I'm like, I'm going to play guitar for a living. And she was like, you don't even know how to play. I'm like, yeah, I need a guitar. And she, 8th grade graduation, they went in on a $150 Epiphone.
Okay.
And like a little crate, solid state amp that you would have gotten in the 90s, and
of course.
That was everything I needed, man. I felt like I was, I was sitting there, I was playing my Metallica riffs, and then Muddy Waters and Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix and all that started coming into my world, and that changed everything.
Yeah. Was there a teacher involved? Or were you just picking it up on
I took a couple lessons off a lady named Karen Macy, but she basically just taught me how to put my fingers on the strings, showed me how, back in those days, you couldn't, in that area, I couldn't just go on the internet and look it up. You either learned it by ear, right? Or you had an elder teach you. Well, I'm the oldest on both sides of my family, no cousins that are older. So I didn't have anybody that I could ask, and when I first went to the public school in Burlington, Wisconsin, I was a farm kid and I didn't let anybody know I could play guitar for the first 2 years because I had this plan. I was like, I'm going to really practice hard. And then junior year, I'm going to let people know I can play.
Yeah.
And then I'll be good enough. And that's what I did. And it was a good plan because suddenly there were, people I went from farm boy who was not cool to dude who plays in the gym in his band, and that helped. That helped my social standing considerably.
Sure. Did you have a band when you were a junior and senior in high school?
Absolutely, man.
Right on. And what were you guys playing out?
Yeah. I mean, like you can when you're 16, but we had an in with a radio station in Milwaukee through a teacher of ours. And they played it was a legit station, and they had a show on Saturday and Sunday nights called Radio Chaos on 93 QFM Milwaukee, long since gone station. Terry Havel was his name. And, he ran a high school radio station. We had the best high school radio station in the state. It was professional, it reported. So I would be on the air there.
Oh, wow.
And my band played in the gym or in the Knights of Columbus or whatever we had to do, and parties,
Yeah.
And he played our music on the radio in Milwaukee. So that was a pretty big thing. Then I went to UW Milwaukee. That band, of course, fell apart, and I formed a new band. And that band got, as far as college bands go, I always played in original music, by the way. I never was in, not saying anything's bad about being in a band that plays covers. I mean, we played some, but the first thing I did when I learned my first, I think the first chord progression I learned was like fade to black, A minor, C, G, I immediately thought, okay, now I can write a song, so that's the way it was. We played original music. Yeah. It was awesome, man. It was a great thing. Yeah.
Did you run into other, other guitar players in Milwaukee, like Greg Koch or, Les Paul?
Greg and I are good friends.
All right.
I've looked up to Greg for a long time. Yeah. I'm so stoked. He was Milwaukee's best kept secret for a long time. I'd go around, and even when I first moved out here, people would talk to me and say they'd talk guitar talk, and they'd be like, who's who have you seen that's like, and I'm like, Greg Koch's one of the best guitar players in the world. Yeah. And, now people know that, he's been on all those stuff, and there's no denying. I mean, he played a night out here with his 3-piece, and I went, and it's a guitar clinic of clinics. I try to walk away with 2 or 3 things that I saw him do, and not necessarily like physically, just like how at ease he is.
Oh, yeah.
We went out, we were one of the first bands, we took Marcus King out when he was just like 20 years old. Wow. We took him out. Yeah. He opened for my band back then. Now I'm like, hey bro, how you doing? But he was the same, it was like, whatever I've got on guitar, I earned, man. And I'm not ashamed to say that. You're born with what you're born with.
Yeah.
And I was not the pick it up and blow everybody's mind guitar player. I was a very utility, but I had a good ear. I knew how to work within the framework of what I was given naturally.
Sure.
I was gifted a little more as a singer.
Yeah.
So that kind of became, my focus. But as I went further, I'd look at like Hendrix and all this stuff, and I'm like, I really always admired guitar players who could really sing and play and be ornate,
Yeah.
So, but Greg Koch, and Marcus and all these guys, one of the things that I'd say that I really focus on, if you're one of those people that doesn't, you watch these guitar players and you're like, oh my God. And just, by the way, I admire, Johnny Ramone and as much as I admire some of these guys in his own way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm about songs, is what my life is about.
Yeah.
But I really want to, if I play a guitar solo, have people be like, oh, that was valid musically. It did something in here.
Yeah.
But Greg, it's effortless. And the thing that I see that I picked up is, and if you watch like any guitar player, Hendrix, Marcus, their eyes are up here, closed, open. They're practice sometimes picturing the neck down here because it escapes you from the one extra piece of it, puts you kind of in a magic place.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Where you're listening and you can envision the neck
Yeah.
And if you're not comfortable doing that, it's just something you got to slowly build where you know your guitar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Stevie Ray Vaughan, another guy, he's not looking down, is he? No. So that's one. And the other is, like Greg's got these gigantic hands, like, just like Hendrix, where the thumb goes over and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
But find a gauge of string that really works for you. All of us read about Stevie Ray and his 13 gauge strings tuned to half step down to E flat. And it's like, oh my God, I want to play like that. But, maybe your hand isn't physically designed for that. And it's like, you got to be able to get to those bends and feel them. And you want to make sure you're playing a string that agrees with you.
Yeah.
And a gauge of string. And don't be ashamed if you play a 10, if you play a 9.5, if you play a 9. Play what you got to play.
Sure.
And the big thing is also pay really close attention to how hard you're pressing the string.
Sure.
That is taking, if you tense up your hand, and it's hard when the music starts hitting you, it's like, Jesus. But it's like, keep those hands at ease, man. That's where control is.
Yeah.
And that will get you closer to guys like Greg, guys like Marcus, who have that natural, like, dexterity that, they've developed, but they were given a God-given gift too.
Yeah.
And they've used it.
Sure.
And those of us who don't have the dexterity of that level, there's no reason we can't try.
Absolutely.
And so you should. You should never give up.
Yeah. Yeah. What brought you out to LA?
My wife.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was over for me, man. I was 30 years old, living in Wisconsin, teaching kids guitar. I was still playing in my bands. I had had success in my early 20s regionally. There was talks to labels and all this stuff, and down to South by Southwest. And,
oh, wow.
Go out to New York and play. I think it was CMJ or whatever it is.
Sure.
Not CMJ.
The college.
I can't remember. Yeah.
Gavin, is it Gavin Festival or something like that? I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was, like I say, it was back like 15, 16, 17 years ago.
Yeah.
So I go out there and, have guys from labels call and think you're going to get signed and never happened. And so I thought I was flat broke. And about 27, I started teaching guitar. By the time I was like 28, 29, I had left the store and took all the students with me.
Wow.
And me and another gentleman who's since passed out in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, formed a little music school.
Wow.
And so I had like 60 kids. I was teaching guitar and playing on the weekends and, drinking too much and because I was depressed.
Yeah,
I thought my dream had passed me by, and I was like, man, I think I've got to do something else. Teaching was something I really loved, but performing was why I did it. Like I said, that Excalibur moment, my declaration to my dad, who was a farmer when I was 14, saying, I'm going to play Farm Aid someday, and it's for you.
Right on.
And I thought I had failed at all that. And my wife got a job offer to go to LA. And I sold the business.
Wow.
And moved to Los Angeles and just started over.
Yeah.
And found the record company and formed my band. And right away, I knew something different was going on.
Oh, yeah. Had you been to LA before that?
Yeah. I had been toured out a couple of times out to LA, and I did enjoy it. I just never saw myself landing there. I didn't think I fit, and I didn't fit at all. Man, I'm up there with dobros and harmonicas and old silver tones at the time, which was my thing at the beginning. And the next band would come on and they'd have like one guy with a computer, which no disrespect, but it's just like, I just didn't fit in. I was older than all the kids playing.
Sure.
I stuck out. I'm up there wearing my goofy hats and talking like I'm from Wisconsin, and it ended up being a good thing. I stuck out like a sore thumb and ended up being a good thing.
Yeah.
And when I formed the record company with Alex and Mark, right away we knew what we wanted to be. We had listened to John Lee Hooker record called Hooker and Heat. He did with Canned Heat in 1971, and it was just so raw and so live. We just set up some microphones in Alex's living room, like 8 mics, and I played an old Fiasco Del Rey. I don't know where it is. It's hanging around here somewhere. That I literally fished out of a dumpster, and I chose that guitar because it was so microphonic that when you were in a little room, it caught everything in the room. It made the little amp sound bigger than it was because I was just playing through a little Princeton.
Yeah.
And the recordings just worked. You know, I sang through a mic that I put through another amp, and it worked. And people started listening. We started getting booked, and you know.
Did you or Alex or Mark have you guys were you're recording in the living room. Did you guys have audio experience before that? Like serious audio experience?
I mean, Alex did, Mark did. I didn't. Okay. You know, I had spent my time on other things. Yeah, you know, I those guys just have a gift for that, a propensity for it, and so what happened was basically we started recording in Alex's living room, and it was like, who's going to work on this music? And Alex was like, oh, I can do it. So he did it. And it wasn't that hard to mix because, you know, it was 8 mics maybe. Yeah. So, you know, and the knowledge grew from there. Sure. You know, he's produced all our records except for one. And you know, it hasn't hurt us at all. As a matter of fact, I've always told him, I said, I feel like when he does it, it adds another level of unique perspective to what we do. Yeah, and he's definitely invested in it more than, you know, somebody outside of the band. That's key. You know, I'll take belief and bandwidth like over a name any day of the week. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like belief is what, you know, we've been together 14 years, been all over the world. You have to, you know, there are really peaks and valleys, and the thing that gets you through is belief. Yeah. Yep. You know, you want to be in a band with people that, or make music with people that inspire you. But if you're going to do a long-term thing, it has to be deeper than inspiration. It has to be a mutually agreed upon destination, a belief, a need, a want to believe that you believe the other person has something to say, you have something to say, and you can prop each other up at the moments of doubt because they come, you know, so heavily. I imagine if anybody is watching this far in the podcast, they know about that already, you know, that exists, you know? Yeah. And so you guys are re-releasing Give It Back to You, and is it remixed or is it I know you added more live tracks to it? Yeah, it's remastered, you know, and then the real thing is that the vinyl is a double vinyl with a bunch of new stuff, live stuff from that era. Right on. Which is great. Yeah. It's awesome. It was super fun. We threw a house party. You can see it on YouTube, just the record company, and you like type in living room party and you'll see it. And we had like 30 people from and we recorded that. That ended up on the vinyl. There's the night that we played the Echoplex in LA, where our friends were all there, and the sound was there. Going back to the living room concert. Yeah. The sound of the living room concert sounded like the records. Yeah. And we put it up on YouTube, and, you know, it got a little buzz from our fans, but now it's on the album, and we've got 20 additional tracks, including some unreleased stuff. We have a song called Stay Up High that was going to be track 11 that we put out. And it's like, dang, I guess we should have put that on the record, because people responded to it like immediately. It started like really taking off, like getting a lot of listens. Well, at least taken off by my standards, you know, and it's just a blast, man. It's a blast to get to put a record out on vinyl and have it go out and have people give a shit, you know. It's great. It's a really beautiful reward after, you know, I didn't get signed till I was 36 years old. You know, it was way past the point of when I thought I was going to be doing stuff like that. And then my whole career started in my late 30s, really started. So it's like, if you ever want to look at somebody who it's like, be stubborn, don't give up when everybody's calling you dumb. And there was a lot of that, you know, like, hey man, still doing that? Yeah, I'm still doing it. You're out in LA. is there any money in that? It's like, of course, there's not any money in it. I'm like, I'm delivering. I was, when I got out here, I was delivering pizzas and working for a moving company and like anything I could do.
Sure.
I got a job at a guitar store and I was like, yes, finally. And I walked in and the guy's like, okay. And I'm like, oh, I've got a band that wants to take me out on tour. I play pedal steel too.
Yeah.
And I had a band that was going to take me out on tour. And the guy's like, well, how long's the tour? I'm like, oh, 2.5 weeks. He's like, you can't take 2.5 weeks off. And I was like, but that's why I'm here, man. And he's like, nope. And I was like, well, then I quit.
Yeah.
So I only job I ever did that with, by the way, because I was like, no, I'm like, I didn't come out here for that. I came out here to tour, and luckily it happened,
Oh, yeah. And any thoughts to go into GIT when you were out there? I mean, when you first came to LA?
Any thoughts what?
To go to GIT?
Oh, yeah, sure. I didn't do it though.
Yeah.
I don't think I had the self-confidence to, and I had left a world where I was running a school and teaching, and I knew that if I went back there too easily, that it wouldn't be tough enough on me to force me to do this. I was in my 30s. I'm like, I only have, at that time, like it's become more of a thing now. Like you look at, like we talked about Greg Koch. Yeah. He's blossoming to men's, definitely not in his 30s. Yeah. And it's like, now it's a little different, but back then there was still, 15 years ago, it was like, you're in your late 30s, you're an old dog, you should probably get put out to pasture, and I just knew that I felt like my time was limited.
Sure.
I felt like I had to get it done. And working at a moving company, I really hated that.
Oh, yeah.
I hated it.
Yes.
And that kept me motivated. I'm like, I've got to get out of this situation. I've got to get out of it. And so I chose, I don't think it was, I knew that if I went too easy, it was going to, and I'm not saying teaching is easy, but I love teaching. And I knew if I went towards teaching, that would become my career. And I wanted this career.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
like teachers are invaluable, brilliant people. And I still, like one of my favorite things about, as much as we all complain about the internet, my favorite things are things like this, or like just watching someone talk about guitar. I mean, there isn't a day that goes by that my little feed doesn't bring me some piece of knowledge. And I mean, I love that.
Yeah. What kind of things do you subscribe to as far as, videos and stuff?
Yeah. There's a guy named Chapman Welsh who's out of like I think he's like down in Alabama or something. He's just a really sweet-hearted. He doesn't have like millions of followers or anything like that. But I also have like a True Fire account.
Oh yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I use that all the time, man. I use True Fire all the time. To work on like, to break out of habits. Yeah, dominant arpeggios, like brushing up on that, or like I really enjoy. There's a guy that on YouTube, I can't recall his name off top, but he'll open tunings. I use a lot of open tunings, and I want to keep things musical. I don't want to get too technical,
Yep.
But like I love open tunings because you always know where the third is, which is so you know where your major, your minor is, and you're stacking it. In my tuning, there's no dominant 7, there's no C6 tuning. It's just a straight major. So I know if I'm in G that my major third is on the second string, and I know if I'm in the D tuning that my major third's on the third string. And you can kind of work it out, but there's so much more to it than that. And when you want to go deeper, somebody who's like spent a lot of time, playing, and I play, the reason I paint these three is I play like this. I've got acrylics on there, and I just decided to make them, look at you. You do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just decided to paint them because people were always asking me about them. That's some brotherhood shit right there, dude. But yeah, so little things like that. I mean, I'm always tuning into, I'm always going back and looking at like just old, there's a thing called country guitar players that like came across my feed.
Yeah.
And I subscribed to it.
Yeah.
And It's teaching me, I like to fancy myself a wannabe chicken picker. And
Sure.
these guys got they've got the moves, and it's like, it's just makes me so excited,
Absolutely. And so when you guys, you're going out on the road here pretty soon, but when you're not out on the road, do you pick up a guitar and go bust somewhere, or do you go to like the local watering hole and play some, play tunes just to keep yourself limber?
That's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that. What I usually do is I'm woodshedding and writing. I set up my day where, there's lyrical element, there's a melodic singing element, there's a chord element, there's and then there's the dexterous element, and harmonica. I play that, and
Sure.
So you're trying to keep all these things balanced and up.
Yeah.
It's like if you were working out your body, you feel like if you spend too much time over here, this part starts to suffer.
Exactly.
And you fall out of balance. So I do have a bit of a routine when I'm home. I wake up, I get the pen in my hand right off the bat, play some guitar in the morning before the phone calls start.
Yeah.
Look at a little bit of, once I've creatively done all my work, if I've got anything to do for the band with management or social media or anything, I'll do that stuff and just kind of put that in this little bubble, and then that's gone.
Yeah.
Because you have to protect. Then I go out and I try to find inspiration.
Yep.
Or just do the normal job of being a husband in a city, and just trying to keep things. I took Muffy to the vet yesterday, a cat that was running. So do stuff like that. But yes, I do get really hungry to play if I'm off stage for too long. It's unfortunate it's coming to an end, but there's a beautiful songwriter night at the Hotel Cafe here in LA.
Sure.
And now they're moving, called Monday. So that's going to be on pause for a while. But I would just hit my buddy Joel Eccles, and he also does front of house for us. And I just would hit him and be like, "Hey man, can you put me on the end of the night?" And I don't tell anybody I'm coming.
Yeah.
I come in there and I play new songs.
Uh-huh.
And I get to have that feeling, and I play the songs I'm not sure about. I never play the ones that I'm like, I think this one's pretty good. I always play the ones where it's like, because I want to know how it feels. That's how you get, when you get to a point. That's a thing I can say. Like, I came up doing open mics and stuff like that. I hosted an open mic when I was, a 21, 22-year-old kid.
Wow.
And it was clutch, because being on stage with the eyes of your peers on you, and you just heard somebody play a beautiful song, and you're going up there with something new, kind of inherently, when you get to a part, it's like you hit a chorus and nobody cares.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this chorus is not, I knew it wasn't there yet. And it's like, not that you should always judge on that, but it's a good way to get a perspective.
Absolutely.
Everything's a perspective. You should never, I don't think it's healthy to allow too many outside voices in your process, but it is healthy, I think, to keep the blade sharp by putting yourself out there.
100%. Yep. I agree.
And I mean, I suck right now. The guy who helps manage the band is always giving me, telling me, he's like, man, you should put the dobro on your lap and just point a camera at yourself. And I'm terrible at that right now. And I'm working at getting better. I'm Gen X. I'm just of that generation. I'm deep Gen X. It feels weird to me, but it's like, so I'm trying to get out here and do things like this. By the way, it's really nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure.
Letting me talk and talk. I mean, as a Midwest guy, this is just a dream. I just get to talk about guitar. It's great.
No, Chris. Well, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I should let you go, and I really appreciate your time, Chris. This is great. So, if people want to find out about the band, speaking of social media and stuff, it's the record company on Instagram and the socials?
Yeah, we're on everything. All the streaming platforms, all your DSP streaming platforms, all the socials. Therecordcompany.net is our website.
Yeah.
And we're a rock and roll band. We care about the roll. The roll's the soul, as far as I'm concerned. People always will say it's blues rock. I say, sure, but there's a better word for it. It's rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the roll was supposed to, as far as my understanding of rock history, it's like the reason it is rock and roll is that's where all that influence of the blues, R&B, soul music, it's the sound of that meeting the Appalachia like country thing, forming like your early your Gene Vincent's and all that stuff. That's where the roll comes from. So your Richie Valens's and your Buddy Holly's. Of course Elvis, but everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And those guys, by the way, Buddy Holly, we all as guitar players, when I talk about music with guitar players, the first thing we talk about is going to be, it's going to be more Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, Tony Iommi, it's going to be that, or, in more modern context, Marcus King, Billy Strings, but the beauty of Buddy Holly's, the Johnny Ramones, Jonesy from the Sex Pistols, an old buddy that we've played with him a couple times when he had his radio station.
Yeah.
That there's a distinctness, a beauty, the Police, to these guitar players who played for the song.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even if you listen to like Chet Atkins, you know what Chet Atkins could do. I mean, you listen to his stuff from the 70s where he's playing with Jerry Reed, it's just like mind-blowingly astounding.
Yeah.
But if he was playing on, just a track in Nashville, a lot of times he's taming that back. He's embellishing brilliantly.
Yeah, but way back.
Right. So it's like, I think that's really critical of us as guitar players to remember, people such as that, the people that play chords like Buddy Holly did, that make songs that none of us could write but him.
Exactly.
They're like, Buddy just knocked your thing over. But yeah, no, it's I think that's a critical element of this whole guitar thing. Not to mention Buddy's the first really well-known guy that played a Strat, which we all know what that means.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you talked about Les Paul. I will close with this. I did get to my friend Mike Hoffman, who has since passed on, and so has Les. Mike helped curate Les Paul because Les Paul's from Wisconsin, and so am I. Yeah. My buddy Mike helped curate the Les Paul Museum in Wisconsin. They had they have a beautiful little thing for him, and in Milwaukee. And when he went to Les's house, he said it was just this insane, like he had the log, which is one of the original prototypes, like under his bed.
Yeah.
He had on his wall, like I have these, he had like a Les Paul from year one that had like a serial number that was ridiculously low, like, almost single digit serial number. He's like, oh, that's one of the first ones. But one of my biggest thrills in this earth, I was playing a little gig in Milwaukee at a place called the Jazz Estate. Uh-huh. It was an improv gig that I played every week. It was kind of like we were based around like the idea of like doing a Herbie Hancock funk thing, like, pretending we knew how we went in with no game plan, and we just would jam on chord. We'd call out changes, and it got it got popular for this little jazz club because it was just so off the cuff. And the other players were great. One of them, Matt, actually plays with Greg now, Greg Koch.
Oh, right on.
But anyhow, I go out to the back for the break, and all of a sudden my phone rings, and I see it's my friend Mike Hoffman, who was a huge influence on me. And he's like, Chris, and I knew he was at Les Paul's house. And I'm like, hey, Mike, wow, where are you? He's like, I'm at Les Paul's house. He's like, there's somebody here who wants to talk to you.
Oh, my God.
And he handed the phone over, and I got to talk to Les Paul for like 5 minutes. And it was incredible, man. It was incredible. He was so with it, man. And this is like not long before he passed. And he was like, when he answered, he was like, hi, this is Les. And I'm like, holy crap. Yeah. Just went to being like a little kid instantly. Yeah. And I was playing a Les Paul at night. So I said, I'm playing one of your guitars. I went total dork. And then he was like, I can't hear on these cellular phones very well. So he handed me back. Yeah, Les Paul, anybody who's never gone deep on his early, like the stuff he did with Les Paul and Mary, like inventing multi-track.
Yeah.
Reverbs.
Yes, exactly. So much stuff.
Delays. Good Lord. Yeah.
Hell, well, thanks. That's beautiful. Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate your time.
No problem. I'm hard to get rid of. Take care, bud.
You too. I hope I get the chance. You make it up to San Francisco again. I hope I get an opportunity to hang out with you in person.
I'd love it.
Yeah.
I'd love it.
Yeah,
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Have Guitar Will Travel. You can catch up on all the things I'm doing at thedeadlies.com. And I'm on all the social media platforms as well. And please support Vintage Guitar and all the wonderful things they do, because they do many, many wonderful things for us guitar players. Thanks. Please subscribe. Please tell a friend. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.